calls it a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
Happy Wednesday, Dodgers fans. Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Daniel Starkand, Scott Geirman. I say happy Wednesday because some breaking news on the day after the spring training officially ends. Domestic opening day is almost here. And ho-hum, the Dodgers haven't finished spending money yet. A 10-year, $140 million extension handed out to catcher Will Smith that will quite literally make him a Dodger for life. At this point, Will Smith had this year and next year in arbitration, then was set to become a free agent. As he gets up there in age, there were questions about what the Dodgers were going to do. But Daniel, I'll start with you. Those questions have been answered. We know about all the prospects that are coming, and we can talk about what this means for them. But one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball is going to be a Dodger for the next decade.
Yeah, this is like when your parents let you open one gift on Christmas Eve. Like tomorrow's opening day, we're gonna get baseball in the States, and we're all excited for that. But this is obviously great news coming the day before here. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty crazy contract. Like, first of all, 10 years, 140 million. We're gonna get into that, but I think all of us, at least, were in agreement like that we wanted the Dodgers to at least look into extending Will Smith. You never know what the numbers are going to be, what he's looking for. But I think obviously he's one of the top catchers in baseball. And if you look at where the Dodgers payroll is at, it made sense to kind of extend him, pay him more now, more than he would have made in arbitration to save some down the road. So I think this is great. Obviously there's a little shock value when you see 10 years for a guy who's about to turn 29. But obviously we know Will Smith has a great bat. So even if, in his later years, he has to move off catcher to the infield or whatever, the bat will still play. So I think this is an awesome deal. Good for Will Smith for locking up that guaranteed money. And hey, he's a Dodger for life. So that's great.
Yeah, and people I see in the chat asking, is it guaranteed? It is pending a physical. However, considering the guy is in the building already and playing in exhibition games, I have a pretty good sense that he's going to pass that physical. Scott, just looking at some of these numbers, I like this from Eric Steven. He pointed out, so Smith was due to make about $8.5 million this year, had one more arbitration year left next year. Presuming that number were to jump to, let's say, $20 million, that's $28.5 million that Smith would have made this year and next year. Steven adds, Real Muto signed a 5-year, $115 million year deal for his age 31 through 35 season. So if you basically add all those numbers up, if Will Smith had finished out arbitration and then gotten the 5-year extension that Real Muto got, that's 7 years for $136.5 million. Not to mention the fact that Real Muto signed the contract, which means Smith's contract was probably going to be bigger. The fact that the Dodgers are getting 10 years for 140 instead of essentially 7 years for 140, that to me highlights just how remarkable of a deal this is. And I would add for everybody involved because it takes a lot of the risk off of the plate of Will Smith.
It's just what we talked about before hopping on. And we think it's for what it is, the average annual value. It's a thing that teams are doing all around the league right now. I love that they bought out his last 2 years of arbitration. Get ahead of this, get him on there. I see people in the chat. It's incredibly difficult to find offensive catchers and ones who are at the top end. I'll go on that. Having Will Smith at a super high inflated average annual value is a tough thing to swallow, kind of, just because the needs around the roster. You can find catchers within the organization, but since 2021, Will Smith's been the most valuable catcher in baseball. Number one. Yeah. He has the highest WAR according to Fangraphs. You can read it however you want. He's had most home runs. He's at the top of the boards. All the things that people care about. This is a home run of a signing extension. This is incredible. So happy Wednesday. Exactly, man. We made it 5 minutes into the video without me going on a big old rant. Like, this is terrific. It's a great thing. Just head into the season, lock it down. Don't have to worry about it going forward. We don't have to pressure any of the other younger catchers in the organization. They can lock this down and, really look forward to having, I'll say it for you, Jeff, before you get into it, having the janitor. Hopefully we can wipe that away. For the next foreseeable future. And this is super exciting. I know everybody that it's a tough thing. It's tough to find negatives about Will Smith.
Yeah. I've been told by Daniel that as part of the contract extension, I have to retire the name janitor. That's sort of pending physical as well. That's part of when they say pending physical, there's some details that need to be worked out, but we'll see. I had somebody immediately on Twitter tell me the nickname sucks. And yes, it's a bit. And I think it's funny that everybody else hates it. And of course, we'll always have the legendary moment with Tim Neverett on playback and me asking what he thought about it. He did not like it. But to Scott, your point, just circling back, looking at catchers last year, there were only 16 catchers in Major League Baseball who were above average offensively, according to weighted runs created plus. And honestly, 16 feels high. I'm surprised. That feels like a deep year in catching. I feel like 2 or 3 years ago, that number was probably closer to 10. So the fact that the Dodgers have locked this guy down in his prime, I would say offensively, like I understand what they're going to do as – is he going to play catcher for the next 10 years? Breaking news. I don't think he will be the catcher every day for the next 10 years. And Austin Barnes fans, don't go celebrating because Austin Barnes isn't going to be the guy that's going to be picking it up, the catching mitt after him. But for them to lock in a guy at a premium position who is just rock solid, you kind of known commodity, I think to me, Daniel, is what makes this valuable. You know how he fits in the locker room. You know how he fits in the lineup. He's not a guy that's going to complain about where he hits in the order. I mean this in the nicest possible way. He's kind of a boring guy, which in a baseball clubhouse is probably for a guy who's a all-star, perennial all-star. That's kind of what you want, is somebody who's boring, who doesn't want the attention, doesn't want the limelight. And so I just love this at every sort of level possible. I'll come to you with this, Daniel. 10 years. You mentioned he's about to turn 29. We know catchers typically do not last well into their late 30s playing the catcher position. Now you've got Smith locked up with Shohei Ohtani for the next decade, Mookie Betts for a large portion of that, Freddie Freeman for a few more years. How do you see this playing out for Smith over the course of 10 years? Is he going to be the catcher for 10 years? Is he going to be the catcher for 4? Is he going to transition to third? Is he going to be the DH? How do you see that kind of all playing itself out before we get into Cartaya and Rushing and Lorenzo and what this means for guys like that?
Yeah, well, first of all, considering all the scandals and stuff the Dodgers have been dealing with, we'll take boring all day.
Yeah.
Like, give me a nice boring guy who just rakes. Like, that's totally fine with me. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think asking a guy to be a full-time catcher until he's 39 or whatever, that's a lot to ask. I do think he's got at least five good years left in him as an everyday catcher. And then, like you said, like the bat is going to play no matter what. Like he does have a history in college. He did play some infield. He did play some third base, some first base. You mentioned Shohei Ohtani's locked up for a decade as well. So the DH slot is kind of accounted for. So if it gets to the point where he's no longer able to catch at a high level, then he will have to find a spot in the infield. And looking down the road, like Freddie Freeman is getting up there in age. Like he's probably only got 3 or 4 years left in him. So maybe it's first base. Max Muncy, obviously we know the defensive issues there, and he's also no spring chicken, as they say. So third base is an option as well. So I definitely think it's a case of let's see how this goes for the next 5 years, and then we could kind of assess from there. Like you're getting him at such a low AAV that even if he's not like an everyday catcher, he could still be a valuable player to your team. So I think that's kind of like 10 years seems a lot, but the point behind it is to lower the AAV. Like you get it down to 14 million, and the reports say there was deferred money, so it's probably even lower than that. Like it might be like a 12 million AAV, which that's like Lance Lynn signed for 12 million this year. So it's like it's not like 12 million is a lot in the baseball world. So I definitely think even if the last few years of this deal aren't looking great just because he's old and has caught so many innings, you're going to get enough value on the first 5 to 7 years that you could kind of live with that.
Yeah. Scott, the first base idea is the one to me that kind of makes sense. And, because if he's going to be too old to play catcher, typically third base is one of those positions that guys might get moved off of as they get up there. It's also worth pointing out that beyond this year, Ohtani can play some outfield. So the DH spot is locked up for this year, but I don't necessarily think it's a quote unquote locked up every year past that. He's going to DH a lot, of course, but I think there's going to be a couple days a week where he could be the DH. But what do you think about the idea of Will Smith, let's say 4 or 5 years down the road from now, Scott, becoming the heir apparent to Freddie Freeman at first base?
Terrific idea. He's a baseball mind. Get him on the field. He's, I'm sure like he's capable of playing a corner infield position. And if that spot opens up, absolutely. You're getting, if that's the case, then you're getting a high upside offensive corner infielder for a fantastic cost controlled value. Also want to note, shout out to Will Smith. I think from what I'm just looking up, he has the third highest value for a catcher contract all time. So
love it. Kudos to him.
Yeah, man. Congratulations. So, but to your idea, absolutely. I think that it opens a ton of opportunities for it. And I think that's something that he'd be open to doing. He's a boring guy, but he also is in a spot where he just wants to win. He's been with the team, and by all accounts, that's everything he's focused on. So I see somebody saying, so have Smith learn second base. Let's keep him at a corner infield spot. There's going to be opportunity there. And for him, it's not as taxing of a position as some may think. So you're able to put him at third base if there's an opportunity there. First base, I think that'd be a fantastic idea, and I'm all for it if that's where they stray to.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman has this year and 3 more on his contract. He will finish his contract at the age of 37. Scott, as I'm just looking at that, 4 more years of Will Smith catching, that puts him into 32, 33 range, and then takes over for first base. I don't think it's a coincidence that you can't map things out 4 years in advance, but that timeline seems to make a lot of sense, especially if that last year or two of catching, maybe he's splitting time as a DH and that kind of a thing. So I just see that playing out. And it's worth pointing out too, Daniel, the thing I like most about this is that Will Smith's offensive profile is the type of profile that I would bet on long-term. We had this conversation when Trey Turner extensions came up. And I said, look, as much as I like Trey Turner, the player right now, the profile of a guy who relies so heavily on athleticism in order to be good is one that scares me in the mid to late 30s. Will Smith, nobody's going to, I think he's athletic, but nobody, that's not the first word that you would use to describe Will Smith. He has great barrel to ball sort of ability. He's strong. He's smart. He knows the zone. These are all the type of things, Daniel, to me, that profile and project moving forward, which is, I think, why, while a lot of us are probably surprised, I know on our show we had talked about, man, when Will Smith hits free agency at 31, are they really going to pay a 31-year-old catcher? I think they did this, obviously, in the way that makes the most sense, but I actually like the offensive profile, Daniel, moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's why they did this. Let's be real. He's not Yadier Molina behind the plate, defensively. He's solid defensively, but he's not. Yeah. It's not even if the bat, goes away in the later years, at least we still got the defense. It's kind of the opposite, right? When he gets older, the defense goes away, at least you're still pretty confident that he's going to be able to produce with the bat. So, yeah, I think that was pretty much the main reason behind this and why they felt comfortable going to 10 years here to kind of lower that AAV.
Yeah, Scott, the second piece of this that I think comes up and crosses people's minds I think people had started to project 2 years from now, they've got all these catching prospects. You had Diego Cartaya, who is a top end, Keith Law said, potential number 1 prospect in all of Major League Baseball a year ago. At catcher, he has a down year, he drops. But then you've got Dalton Rushing, the first round pick, who just continues to mash ball everywhere he goes, and he's rising up. And then you've got Thayron Lorenzo, this international free agent that nobody was talking about a year and a half ago, who some people are now saying might be the best catching prospect in the system. So when you look at those 3 guys, we just said, hey, Smith might be the catcher for the next 4 years. That's going to be the obvious spot that's available that we know he can handle. Is it possible he moves to third in a couple years? Maybe. But I would like to think that their hope is he can handle catching for 4 more years at a solid level just because the offensive value is so great. But in your estimation, Scott, what does this mean for those other 3 guys, Cartaya, Lorenzo, and Rushing?
Yeah, what did we talk about last night? We talked about everybody in the chat wanted to speak on top trades and stuff like that. This is the time where you lock in a position and you always try to fill those needs. Same thing with shortstop. If you can lock that in, you can end all the speculation for you have to go outside the organization for this. So now you have the catcher spot locked down and chat's going wild with this. Yes, this is where you can now look to Diego Cartaya's value has been down. It's unfortunate that he's kind of dropped from that, top spot. He had a lock on it, but he's taken a step back. They'll likely hold on to him, try to regain that, unless they're able to get top value for him. Somebody's able to project what he's going to do. But I think Dalton Rushing in the immediate, he's 23 already. So he's young, but Will Smith is going to be that guy for a bit, as you can see. But he might be a name that pops up. It's our top prospect. He's doing everything that you need to do. We saw him a little bit in spring, didn't do too hot. but he projects fantastic. So I would say if anyone wants to look at a name they're going to dangle out there, maybe towards the deadline, if there's somebody that is looking to get moved, it could be Dalton Rushing, and don't be surprised if that actually happens. If he continues to rake, which I by all accounts he will.
Yeah, MLB Pipeline, for context, has Rushing as the organization's #1 prospect, ahead of Nick Frasso, Andy Pajes, Josue DePaula, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Kyle Hurt, etc. Cartaya, who I imagine was #1 on this list a year ago. I guess I can go back. Was #1 on this list a year ago, is down to #9 in the organization. So the 9th best prospect in the organization. Lorenzo is 10th. So Lorenzo's 20 years old, Cartaya 22, Rushing 23. Cartaya and Rushing have estimated time of arrivals of 2025. So next year, Lorenzo 2026. It's worth pointing out Rushing and Lorenzo both have catcher / first base as their position. And so, again, I think the Dodgers, they love optionality. We know that. And so it's possible to keep these guys around because, as I pointed out, Ohtani is the DH this year. But once he can start playing the outfield, there's going to be some opportunities in the DH spot that could be open, especially if it's a guy like Rushing who just mashes the ball. And between Will Smith not catching every single day, if he's catching 60% of games, that means 40% of games are available, plus some DH opportunities. Like, if these guys hit, there's going to be room for someone, not 3 of them, though. And I always want to point this out as well. People that love prospects, I love prospects. The best case scenario for any of the 3 guys we just mentioned is Will Smith. like the 100th percentile outcome is they become Will Smith. So the people that want to get rid of Will Smith to have one of these guys plug in, you just cross your fingers and hope and pray that the 100th percentile comes out and you have a perennial all-star like you already do in Smith. And so, Daniel, how do you see this playing out? Do you think they slow play it? Do you think they rebuild some value for Cartaya, wait to see how Rushing develops with the thought of, hey, we could just bring this guy up as our backup first baseman, backup catcher, part-time DH a year from now? Or do you think they get aggressive and could one of these guys be the centerpiece to a Willy Adames type trade, a Jesus Luzardo type trade, if the Dodgers end up going sort of big game hunting?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I think with Cartaya, I'm in agreement with Scott and you that, like, now is just not the time for him. Like, you want to at least rebuild some of that value. You just said he was the #1 prospect in the organization 1 year ago. So you at least want him to kind of get back up to there to where he has value. Like, you don't just want to, dump a guy who still is young and has a lot of upside. But yeah, I definitely think this gives the Dodgers a ton of flexibility to do really whatever they want to do. Like you said, like, a lot of these catching prospects they have can play other positions. So if you decide to hold on to them and a year or 2 from now, when Austin Barnes, his contract finally comes to an end, and then you could bring one of these guys up as the primary backup, and they could also get, at bats at other positions. But also, if there's other teams that like these guys in trade talks, absolutely. Now you don't have to hesitate to pull the trigger, knowing we got the catcher spot locked up for the long-term future. So I definitely think it gives the Dodgers a lot of flexibility. I definitely think when you look down the road towards the trade deadline, when they're in talks for Willy Adames or whoever it is, like, I definitely think we're going to hear names of these catching prospects, brought up more than they typically are, just because we know that catcher isn't really a need for the Dodgers anytime soon. So yeah, I definitely think it's a good position to be in. Obviously, every team is looking for a catcher that's the caliber of Will Smith. Like, there's only a few of them out there right now. And I will say there are a few. Like, I feel like, the catching position has risen in the last few years with guys like Sean Murphy, Adley Rutschman, on and on, William Contreras. But every team is looking for guys like that, guys who could play catcher and hit at the same time. And if you're the Dodgers and you got a farm system with 2 or 3 of those guys, you're sitting in a great spot. Yeah,
I think it's a great point. And it's worth pointing out, those are the top. They've got a few guys in the top 10, but the Dodgers have other guys in the organization. I mean, even a guy like Hunter Fiducia, he's not a top prospect. And yet, like, if he plays like he did last year, I think he could probably start in Major League Baseball if he had the opportunity. And so the Dodgers are flush with guys that are of different values too. Like, do you want the high-end guy? Do you want Fiducia, who's kind of like a sort of a hybrid 1A, 1B type catcher? I think they've got options there. So let's get to some questions here as we break this down. Again, if you're just joining us, breaking news: Will Smith and the Dodgers agreed to a massive 10-year, $140 million extension. There is some deferred money, as Daniel pointed out. Juan Toribio had the report first. I believe Jeff Passan had the numbers first. And then Feinsand was the one who included the detail about deferred money. So a group effort for Major League Baseball beat writers. So way to piece this all together. But huge news for the Dodgers. If you've got any questions, feel free to start throwing those in the chat. We'll take about 5 or 6 minutes worth of those. But I want to say thanks to everybody joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Over 1,000 people here on a noon on Wednesday, the day before regular season baseball, domestic opening day, if you will. So thank you all for joining us. But if you've got some questions in there, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we will get to some as well. Scott, as we're waiting for some questions, we've had a little bit of time to process this. Details have come out. Give me your thoughts on kind of tying a bow on maybe how you feel about what happened today.
Yes, I feel terrific. And, looking around Major League Baseball, catchers who have signed, I know everyone's going to talk about, Will Smith turns 29. I think you said tomorrow. You can look at the other big name catchers that have signed to Major League Baseball. When did JT Realmuto sign his contract? Wilson Contreras, Salvador Perez, Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy, 28, Salvador Perez, 31, Wilson Contreras, 30, JT Realmuto, 29. So, this is the age that you get catchers signed in long-term. It just so happens that the Dodgers were able to land an AAV they feel comfortable at, that they project his offense towards the back end of that contract. And even if he's not with the team, even if he's not there towards the back the last few years, it's not a big deal. That's where that Feinsand came in with that detail, the deferred money. That's terrific. So, but this is where you lock these catchers in. And to get a caliber, a player of Will Smith's caliber for this, couldn't be happier. So if you ask me, and chat kind of has to understand that this is where catchers have signed. It's really difficult to get a Kyber Ruiz signing when he's, I think, 24, 25 years old on a long-term deal. That just doesn't happen. Those things are super rare. And to take a below market deal, I think Will Smith understood that this is a terrific value for him, and he doesn't want to hit the free agent market when he's 30 years old. So this is a optimal for both sides. So
yeah, and hey, he didn't want to wait for Scott Boras to promise him $200 million only to sign a 1-year deal with a vesting option. So
Boras would have held him tight.
Yeah, thank you for the super chat, William. We appreciate it, Matty man. I dig how you guys jump on the breaking news quick. Never fails. We try. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm out of town, supposed to be on vacation. I'm like, Will Smith signs an extension. You better believe I'm off and on the live show. This one I wasn't going to miss. So Ozzy has a question. Do you think Buehler is hurt seeing Will Smith's extension? Obviously, Walker Buehler set to be a free agent. Daniel, I can't imagine this is what's going through Buehler's mind because I don't think there's a shortage of money in the Dodgers organization. I don't think it's scarcity mentality of oh shoot, now they can't pay me. And B, Buehler knows he doesn't want to sign an extension today. Buehler wants to sign an extension 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now after he has proven in his mind that he's back to where he thinks he could be, right?
Yeah, and I also think this extension with as low of an AAV as it is, gives the Dodgers even more financial flexibility, not less. The fact that they're able to lock down the catcher at 12 million, or we don't know the exact deferrals, what it's going to be, but the fact that you have a starting, catcher locked down at 12 million a year for the next decade gives you more flexibility moving forward. Yeah,
it's a great point. I mean, think about it this way. Will Smith's cap hit in 2025 will be about $8 million less than it was going to be if they hadn't signed this extension. So they actually have more money to spend in 2025 than they did before today. So shout out to Walker Buehler getting his back. TQT, Scott, I don't know if you've dug into this one. I know you're a big Willy Adames guy. I don't know if you allow your eyes to wander beyond him, but he said, is there a non-rental, so Adames 1-year guy, shortstop that you might want now that guys like Rushing and Cartaya might be trade bait? We've talked about Ha-Seong Kim, highly unlikely Padres, but a rental, 1 year. Willy Adames, 1 year left on his contract. Is there anybody that well, let me start with this, Scott. Do you think Cartaya, Rushing, Lorenzo, that's too high a price to pay for 1 year Willy Adames? Is that sort of the premise behind this? I'm curious if you agree.
I might give up Cartaya.
Wow.
I might. I mean, if they're willing to do that now, I might. You got to think I think I might I would.
Risk there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw how an extension just got done for this. Willy Adames is 29. He's not young either. That's a 30-year-old cat or shortstop potentially with incredibly high upside offense, good glove. Only thing you're missing is batting average. Sorry, Matt, but I have to say that every time. I love doing it. But that's the type of guy. But it's tough to find players at these premium positions. Tough to find catchers. It's when the opportunity is there. Pitchers are a different story. So it's somebody's talked about Walker Buehler. Different thing. You can find pitchers. You can. You can find mid-range pitchers, but you can't find like top 5 catchers. You can't find top 5 shortstops, top 7 shortstops. It just doesn't happen like that. I mean, if they find the value in that and they see long term that the ability to keep Willy Adames, or even if they do it for a 1 year, I mean, take the risk. But catchers are big time. That's diamonds. You have to look for, is the opportunity there to get him long term? Is that a guy you want to sign in? Is he going to take the deal, or is it just a rental? And then you have to weigh that cost. Trade bait. I mean, like I would dangle Cartaya out there if they want to take that. Sure. Like you saw the same thing with Ruiz. They didn't have any problem like losing him, and look where they're at now. So it's like we've seen them churn catchers out, and I expect them. They have the formula to do it again, and they're going to do it again. So I'm going to bank on them that they're willing to part ways with one of them. We just don't know if they want to. Dalton Rushing will stay in. Cartaya, they want to build up. But if somebody's willing to take Cartaya, absolutely. We just don't know that. I wouldn't if I'm the Brewers. Like I would ask for a little bit more. And people might say that's too much, but it's the premium value of these positions. So I would.
There's parallels too, because Adames had a down year last year too. So it's like there's sort of risk on both sides as far as the value of these guys was higher 12 months ago than it is today, in my estimation. Daniel, Cartaya for Adames, would that be too much for you?
Probably, yeah, but I have an actual answer to the question being asked here, since no one has answered it yet. One shortstop I would keep an eye on, that there was kind of some rumors at the beginning of the offseason, Bo Bichette. He's obviously incredible. He's got a couple years left under arbitration. We'll see. We obviously got to see how the Blue Jays season goes here. Like if they're out of it, maybe they're looking to flip him at the deadline, knowing they're probably not going to pay him long-term money. So that I'd say that's one name to keep an eye on, and that's a guy that I would be willing to give up, some real prospect capital for. So yeah, I'd have to kind of look around the league and see who else is out there, but that was kind of one name that came to mind for me.
Bichette has an extra year of control beyond that, so it could be an interesting one. So thank you for the question there. Let's see more questions here. Judy, why did some people, wink, wink, Blake, think the Dodgers weren't going to extend Will? I think, I'll be honest, everyone knows where I stand on Will Smith. I don't think, and I don't mean to speak for everybody, I don't think any of us expected Will Smith to get extended, for the sole reason being the Dodgers haven't really done this type of signing before, one. And two, they typically don't overpay guys at the back end of their career. And so if Will Smith's going to be a free agent going into his age 31 season, none of us saw the Dodgers, based on history, based on Corey Seager especially, saying, yeah, sure, we'll sign up for 5 years and $130 million. Now, if you had told us, hey, how do you feel about Will Smith today, 10 years, 140, we all would have loved that. But I think I don't want to put Blake under the bus, because I think all of us were in agreement that we would have been, that we are surprised that this extension was reached based on sort of track record. Daniel, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And to even add on to that more, like Will Smith had to agree to this as well, and that's not necessarily an easy thing. Like most players want to get to free agency where they're on the open market and can negotiate with any team and get the most money possible. But I think it's clear after Will Smith signed this deal that, getting the most money possible was not necessarily what he was interested in. Like he's obviously comfortable in LA, wanted to be a Dodger for life, and they found a number that worked and were able to get it done. But I'm in agreement. Like I wasn't expecting this to happen, just because it's not really the Dodgers MO. Like this is a very Atlanta Braves-ish deal here. And I like that the Dodgers were, forefront, wanting to get it done before the season started, and they were able to find a number that works.
Well, and I've said this before personally, like I have a personality type that I think is different from most people, in that if I was in a guy like Will Smith's shoes, the ability to just lock in $140 million guaranteed and not have to worry about what happens if I blow out my ACL, what happens if I hit 190 next year. Like, am I going to miss out? Because think about it. Will Smith's going to get one contract in his career. He was going to make about $8 million this year, which is a lot of money, probably 15 to 20 next year. Again, a lot of money. And then he had one bite at the apple as a 30-year-old catcher, and so 31-year-old catcher. So guys like me, like if I'm in Will Smith's shoes and they say, hey, we're going to give you $140 million guaranteed. You like it here. Your family likes it here. You never have to move. You don't have to worry about any of this. And we're going to be competitive every year. I get that there are going to be people that say, man, he could have gone out and maybe got $175 million. But I just think the security of knowing that regardless of if you blow out your knee or struggle offensively, you've got the bag already. I think that matters. Scott William, again, thank you for the super chat. Billy Barrels needs a Scott G stash to be great. Your thoughts?
It would take him up a notch. Let's just say, I'm just saying, it would add a little bit. It would add a little bit more mystique to, Billiam Smith. We love it.
Yeah. I'll stay with you, Scott. Matty Man has this question. Do you think Will saw how dicey the free agent market is and said, no thanks? Do you think that played a role, Scott?
Maybe, but look at the value. This wasn't like a below market deal. This is like him, just like you said, this is him looking at it like this might be the only contract I get. And what's wrong with being having the highest currently in Major League Baseball, the contract with the highest value? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, how much more was he going to get in terms of if is he going to get at that last deal? He might not have gotten that extra contract after, say, a 5-year deal. He might not have gotten that. So this was probably the best offer for him. Projectability, long-term sustainability, guaranteed money, $140 million. Doesn't matter where it comes as long as it's all there. Total value is what everybody should be focusing on, not the years. They could have shortened this down, and then it would have inflated the average, the AAV even higher, and then the question marks would have happened. But now it's like you get him for $14 million a year. Some of it's deferred, so that's probably going to come down, undoubtedly. So you're going to get him on a terrific value, and the overall is just where people are going to look at. It's just 10 years is an eye-popping number, but like Daniel said, he had agreed to this contract. Yeah. So we're at a spot where it's great for both sides. No, the free agent market would have loved to have him, but he's in a position. He's with an organization that loves him. He's got a great rapport here. He's done fantastic things with the Dodgers. Won a ring. Why leave?
Yeah. Noisy Ninja 91. Yachty was a catcher until the end of his career. What's the reason Will can't? This is hilarious. I was just looking up. I was like, well, let's see how Salvador Perez. Let's see how the end of his career played out. How much catcher was he playing? Do you guys know how old Salvador Perez is?
38.
He's getting up there.
He's 33.
33? Oh my God, it's a 38. Oh, sorry, Sal.
I had him in my head as 38
too.
38. I was like, holy crap, this guy played catcher all the way till the end. He caught 90 games last year. And then I'm looking, I'm like, the guy's only 33. That's amazing. The reason I asked Scott is because I thought
Kansas City.
Anyways, Daniel, why can't Will be a catcher for the next 10 years?
I mean, first of all, he might. We really don't know. I think we're just kind of projecting here, and I do think Yachty is an outlier. There's not too many guys who were able to catch as many innings as Yachty did and still be playable behind the plate. And I also think Yachty's bat definitely declined as he got older. But I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see. I just don't think it's necessarily reasonable to have a guy be an everyday catcher for 15 years and still be as good as he once was. So we're gonna have to wait and see. It's gonna be he's definitely gonna be catch for the next 4 to 5 years, and then I think after that it's kind of gonna be a year-to-year thing where they're gonna evaluate how good was he, can he still handle the position, or has he not had any injuries, or his legs holding up okay? There's a lot of factors at play here. Catching is not an easy thing. Squatting for 3 hours a night, 100 30 40 times a year. That puts a lot of stress on your legs. So I think we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm not sitting here completely ruling it out, saying they absolutely have to move Will Smith off catcher after 5 years. It's gonna be a year-to-year thing, and we're gonna have to see how he holds up health-wise.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And people, to be fair to us, Scott, a lot of people shocked that 33 is the number for Daniel. What number were you gonna guess?
I'm blown away.
Well, I said he was getting up there, so I would have said 36, 37. At 33 was pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, he's younger than me, as people in the chat are pointing out, which is
Kansas City does to a man.
Okay, let's get one last question. Chico Dopeness, don't recognize the name, so welcome. We love to have new people chiming in. Next shortstop prospect is Joendry Vargas in the Dodger system. What are your thoughts on the up-and-coming shortstop stars? Scott, I'll come to you. Depending on where you look, Pipeline has Joendry Vargas first. They have Emil Morales second. He's the 19th ranked prospect, Joendry 13th, and then Trey Sweeney way down at 22. I think there's other places that would have Trey Sweeney at the top of this list, by far the closest to the major leagues. But Scott, do you think there's a long-term answer at shortstop in the Dodgers farm system right now?
I really don't. I don't in the immediate. I don't. For where this window is at, maybe down the road, long term, then say yes. But a lot of people want to talk about the immediate. If you're telling me within the next few months, there's not like there's nobody within the organization. Trey Sweeney's not capable of coming up and taking over like a everyday job. Like he could do it, and there would be growing pains there undoubtedly. If we want to talk 2025, sure. But if you're looking for something maybe mid-year, you're not going to find it. I don't believe within the Dodgers organization right now. He's a super athletic guy, big dude, 6'2". So we saw him in spring, left-handed bat, which is great. That's tough to find there in the middle infield. I would say, it's slim pickings right now in the Dodgers organization for shortstops. And that kind of sounds like where they've been, unless you've gone out and acquired an outside superstar or a star bat.
Yeah. Vargas, by the way, the top prospect shortstop according to Pipeline, ETA 2028. So Will Smith will be halfway through his contract by the time Joendry Vargas might be a major leaguer. And Trey Sweeney, by the way, the profile is similar to a guy like Corey Seager, which is they don't even know if he can stick at shortstop long term. I'm sure the Dodgers have better info, but that was one of the pieces coming out on him as well. So we did have one other one asking when's the Austin Barnes extension going to be announced? Has Austin Barnes rapid fire? Daniel, has Austin Barnes signed his last contract as a member of the Dodgers as a player?
Yeah, I'll say yeah.
Scott?
Yes.
There we
but
go.
Show some respect.
Show some respect. That's fine. I'll show
I know.
respect.
I've been including that a bunch. Wow. Somebody said nope. Oh God, we'll have to do a live if they sign him to another one. We'll do an hour.
I'll be on vacation that day. You won't want to hear what I have to say on that one. Hey, folks, we appreciate you joining us again. Wednesday, middle of the day, 1,200 plus people in here. It's amazing stuff. So thank you. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, Thursday, domestic opening day. We will have a live post-game show, not right after the game because that's like 4 o'clock, 7 p.m. We will be going live, probably 7:10 p.m. We'll be going live to break down domestic opening day, Glasnow's first start as a member of the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, Ohtani's Dodger Stadium, regular season debut, all sorts of stuff to break down. So if you're not already, subscribe, ring the notification bell here. We try and get on breaking news and give you reaction and thoughts and a forum to discuss as quickly as possible. So subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you're a podcast person, check us out, Apple, Spotify, Google, the DodgerHeads podcast. We would love to have you. That is Daniel Starkand. That is Scott Geirman. I am Jeff Spiegel. Folks, enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, go Dodgers.